me show. Hello. Okay. So these aren't planned. This is really like what comes in. I really wanted something interactive. I've done other things. I've done I had my daily five. I had my, also the weekly five that I had. So, those were more that I recorded them and then posted them up. But I really craved to be able to have interaction, right? Like, what do people want to know? Like, I was just talking, and, giving up tips, but I want to know, what questions there are about that, what people actually want to know, talk about different topics, sit and have a discussion. So these aren't scripted. I will have different topics that I may want to bring up. Now, full disclosure, I don't know how this works very well. I don't know how live works. I'm going to try to post these up, the replays on my YouTube. I don't know if that's possible. So it could be that, what you see is what you get. So I want to thank everybody that does come. Let me put a little bit of lipstick, because why not? Right? How's that? Good, right? Yeah, that works. Okay. So, as I was saying, this is really sharing my life, my insights. First I want to start by saying that a lot of my experience comes not only from psychology, obviously, because I studied psychology, got my master's, am a psychotherapist, I'm a licensed psychotherapist in New York and in Florida, and do have my own practice. And so I do have, knowledge between, on the psychological end, on really understanding our behaviors, our patterns, and how they're developed. So there is knowledge in that. But I've always also been very gifted, and I am what's called a clear empath. So what does that mean? A clear empath is somebody that really feels and, is able to feel the feelings of others. And so what happens for me is that I get to feel your feelings, even just looking at you, even just you entering the room, I can tell your feelings, and in my mind, I get the picture of what happened that led you to have those feelings. So the wounds that are created, that are down in deep, that actually created that. So I just get this image. I get this image of either a moment that happened in a story that you told yourself. And so, that's clear empathic, right? And so I can, and first, I want to preface this by saying that we are all capable of this. This is all about how energetically attuned, how open our third eye is, and how much we can absorb frequencies. So we're all capable of this, right? Now, why are some people able to do it and others not? Is really about a level of consciousness, is really about having clarity of mind, having clarity of spirit, right? And so the more aligned you are, the more conscious you become, the more you're able to pick up on other things. Because what happens is that our mind has all this white noise. And so we're not able to pick up on that, right? We're not able to determine that's my feeling, that's their feeling. It's all about the antennas and the receptors. And so, definitely know that we're all capable, and it really starts with alignment. It does everything. And that's my whole point. My whole point is that everything in our lives, our entire reality, is about really our alignment. How aligned are we to who we are and who we truly are? Who are we? Can we remember who we are, right? Before all the conditioning, before our family, before our friends, before the world, who are we? Who's that little spirit? If we look at children, we're really able to tell, they just are themselves, right? They find whatever, their personalities start to show early, right? How they engage in the world. And so Really, like I say, as people coming in, hello everybody, and I invite you to ask questions. If you want to also join the live and we can talk together, we can do that. Definitely that's what I'm looking for. So whoever does want to come on, has a question, put it in the comment box. I'll read it. I'm able to read it, and then I can ask you to join if you want to have a conversation. All up to you. So, this is going to be, these lives are going to be weekly on Sundays. But, about 30 minutes is all that I'll stay on. So you'll catch me from 12 to 12:30. And so I'm just excited. Any questions so far? Anything that anybody wants to, introduce? Right now, for today, what I thought about is, one of the things I wanted to start off with is something that really helps me. Really helps me keep my spirits up, because one of the things one of the tips that I can give you is that you need to have practices that help you maintain and uplift your energy. Listen, we get so easily in a rut, like the world, right? We're like work and like getting up early and we eat the same things every day, or we don't eat, or whatever the case is, and we get in a rut, right? And so we don't think about the habits and the practices that can help uplift us. Now let me tell you, everything is habit and practices. Absolutely everything. So all the habits that you have now, bad or good, you be the judge of that, right? They happen because of repetition, because it's what we're used to. So the first thing you really want to, look at, sometimes it takes working from the outside to change the inside. And also the outside, you want to arrange in a way that really supports the ways you want to feel, right? The mind is a machine. The brain is a machine, and it wants to serve us. The brain wants, and the mind wants to serve us. It wants to make us feel good. And most of all, it wants to make us feel safe. So even if we had an experience that could be deemed as good, right? Like it was pleasant, but it was scary, is going to try to keep us from those experiences. So let's say you're for work, you have to network. And networking is a good thing, right? But if you were feeling anxious and insecure that whole time, your brain is going to make it so you have an aversion to it, right? So it's like, no, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that, right? What if this happens? What if that happened? The brain is a machine. So if you say, you know what, brain, we want to be sad, guess what the brain is going to do? It's going to look up all the files, all the reasons for us to be sad, right? And so if you tell it, I want to feel good, it's going to bring up all the things and all the reasons why you should feel good. You have to learn how to master your mind. And we do this with our thoughts, right? Managing our thoughts. Always, the minute you get a bad thought or a scary thought, you have to be present. You have to be in the moment and revert it. If the thought is like, oh man, I don't know, us women, right? Oh man, I really need to lose some weight. It's like, oh, but you got to counter it. Oh, but look at my butt though. But look at them hips though. That ain't bad. You got to switch it. Immediately switch it. It's something that you do have. It's a level of awareness. It's a level of consciousness that has to happen, right? You have to be present, because mind chatter keeps us in the past or in the future, right? The gap between what is and what we wish it to be, that gap is where anxiety and depression lives. Depression is focused on the past, the things that happen to us, the stories that happen to us, while the anxiety is most of the time related to the future. What if I fail? What if this isn't good enough? What if I never get there? What if? What if? And so anxiety and depression are all things from the past and the present, because like I say, do it with me. If you're in this moment right now and you look around, take a deep breath. Do you need anything? Wherever you're at, wherever you're looking at this from, you probably don't need anything. right? Maybe, you're a little hungry, you can get food. But you have food, but you can't get food. You know that that's the next thing you're going to do. If you're safe, if you have shelter, right? Most of the time, in the moment, we are okay. Obviously, unless you're in a crisis in the moment, right? Okay. But otherwise, if you are safe, if you are warm, you are okay. You could be a little hungry because the body can deal with a little hunger, right? Now, when we are present, we can master our mind the most. When we are conscious, when we are self-aware, we can master the mind most. And that is, I'm telling you, that is your assignment, is to be present and master your thoughts so you could create your reality. And you do that by all the things you have around you. That means all the things you look at, all the people you speak to, all the things you listen to, the foods that you eat and nourish your body with, okay, is your entire surrounding that you want to make as comfortable as possible. And that you have the choice to always improve your surrounding. Let's say you're somewhere that you don't want to be. What can you do? In your mind, you could go anywhere. You're not tied to that location. So in your mind, you could say, close your eyes. I'm in a beach. I'm listening to the song. And you have that song on repetition. And in your head, you're like dancing. You have just elevated yourself through your mind into a space that you want to be in. That is the power of the mind. And so the first thing, right? Again, I'm going to be throwing out as much insights and tips, and there are levels to the things, right? There is the physical, there is the mental, there's the emotional, and there's the spiritual. And each level has its own sorcery, its own mastery, right? Because emotions in the mind often get confused, right? We often are confused between our emotions and our mind. Emotions, they are like the teenager, right? The emotion is like the emotional body is like the subconscious. It's really what is the closest to your inner child, your inner wisdom, your inner soul. And so emotions are the language. That's what they are. They are the language of the subconscious. Okay, listen to that. Emotions are the language of the subconscious. It is the subconscious telling you, oh, hey, we don't like that. Oh, wait, give me a second. That don't seem right. Or when we're excited, yes, I like this. I love this. I want more of this. Okay. So emotions are the language of the subconscious, but emotions don't always mean that it's true, right? Because you could be feeling a certain way based on older fears or other fears, right? Other wounds, because our perspective and what we think comes from these experiences. So if early on as a child, you experience something turbulent, right? Let's say trauma, let's say crisis, let's say, PTSD, all that stuff, right? Abuse. Then the lens that is formed as a child, right? That's the perspective that you usually tend to look at things. So if you're somebody that's anxious or worried, that is based on the experiences that you had when you were younger. Right? If you were in a home that didn't allow you to feel, whether maybe you were safe and that you had food and you had shelter, but were you feeling emotionally safe, right? Were you able to share your emotions, speak up, right? Say what you want, what you don't want. I'll tell you, cultures, this is where it comes in, because cultures, right, and like our cultural customs definitely have a role in that. I know in Hispanic cultures, right, like emotions aren't a big thing. So you have your family providing for you and you have the basic needs, but you may not have had emotional support or emotional safety. Okay. So hold on, there's so much to share and one at a bit, right? So I myself am trying to not give too much as I always do. So essentially, what today is about is creating your reality and your space. It's about making the choices that you need to make, creating the awareness that you get to choose your reality by the things that, by recognizing and being aligned, and then doing the things, taking the actions that are going to make that space better. So let's say, coffee. I drink coffee every day. If I want something special, I put whipped cream on it. And that's what I call it, putting whipped cream on the coffee. I mean, really, truly, we get to do that. Like I say, if you're feeling anxious in the moment and you're like, find yourself disassociating or whatever the case is, bring yourself back by creating a safe space in your mind, right? Now, I've often been called Delulu or, rose-colored glasses. And you know what? That's my superpower because I live in my own world, in my own bubble. And, I learned that is the safest place to be, that I can manage and control that. And that what my reality becomes is about how I think of things, myself particularly, right? For those that may not know me, that might be here, I grew up, I was very obese. I struggled with childhood obesity. And, that is tough. People are mean. Kids are mean. I mean, I wasn't able to, the minute I step out of my house, anybody that I encountered, the first thing that they would look at me and say is about my weight. It's like, oh my, and not the nicest way always, especially, Spanish people, like, oh my God, you're so fat. What's going on? Right? Like they just say it like that. But even meaner were people outside, right? Like me walking, I was like 360 pounds, right? I'm short. I'm 5'1", so very tough on my body. And so sometimes, after a block or two, my calves would start burning, so I would have to stop. I would have to stop in the middle of the street to take a rest, to give my legs some time. My gosh, the comments, right? Like, tú sí estás gorda, you're so fat, te va a morir, you're gonna die, damn, close your mouth, cierra la boca, like, just crazy. I don't know how people feel they have license to tell other people these things, but my point is that was occurring, right? And whether it was family that was maybe nicer or gentler, but not all, or, people that watched me grow up, or even just, like I said, just stepping out of my house, my neighbors that seen me grow up, like everywhere I went. So one of my first lessons, I believe, is knowing who the F I was. I had to be like, okay, yeah, I'm fat, but I'm so much more. I'm fat and I'm pretty. Hello, because I always thought I was pretty. I'm fat and I'm pretty. Also, I am intelligent as F. Okay, I am smart, right? And not only was I smart because I did good in school, and yes, I got good grades and all that stuff, but I was smart because of the way that I saw the world, because of the understanding that I had, right? I was, again, always being a clear empathic, right? Was very attuned to people and their needs. And so social, smart, there was so much more to me. So the first lesson I had to learn is it's about my opinion about myself, not what people say. I had to look at the mirror and still find my beauty. And so back then, talking about the things that we need to do, is that I would definitely fantasize a lot, right? I lived a lot in a fantasy world, but also when I looked at myself, I would make sure that I was telling myself the things I loved about myself. Like, okay, yeah, I'm fat, but I got this big old butt. Yeah, I'm fat, but look at these curves. Yeah, I'm fat, but look at this pretty face. Like, yeah, I'm fat, but my hair is nice. So whatever it was, that the things that I did like about myself, because there was plenty to like about myself aside from being fat, right? And so one of the first lessons I had to run into in my life was knowing who I was, despite what everybody reflected to me, right? And so we do that inner knowing that, this is all about getting back to yourself. This is all about alignment. And it starts with how you see yourself. You have to start with really assessing and evaluating those perspectives that may not right off the bat, you may not right off the bat realize you have. And that starts with how you see yourself, your self-image, your self-esteem, right? How you think of yourself. What concepts do you have? Where do they come from, right? Concepts about others, concepts about life, concepts about money, concepts about love. We have to start by figuring out and creating the awareness. How do I see things? What are the stories I have developed? It starts there, right? It starts there. And then knowing that we can change that. And all of that changes with our habits and repetition, because the same voices and the same repetitive messages that we got that created the negative core beliefs or the negative ideas is through repetition, is to seeing it over and over again. And society doesn't help with that, with ideas of beauty, with ideas, of femininity, with all those ideas. Again, those are ways that the propaganda is still, right, fed, right? And so we have to look outside of that and say, wait a minute. I don't care how many people say this is beauty or whatever. What do I think is beauty, right? We got to start there. Do I like blue? Do I like dyeing my hair? Do I like beauty regimens? What do I like? What's my opinion about things? Where does these things come from, right? And so first we got to start with knowing what is our psyche made up of now. So we could start to deconstruct that. One is to challenge it. It's to say, but does it have to be that way? Does it mean that because I'm within my culture, a Latina girl, that I'm the one that has to cook and clean and bear children and that's my entire future? Is that how I feel about things? No, that's not how I felt about things, right? And so it really is, our personality, our who we become, what is shaped early, is a combination between our environment and our personality. The personality is something that we're born with, that is innate, okay? That's why in young children, we start to see those personalities really early. And it's through our teachings of saying, yes, that's right. Yes, that's correct. No, that's right. No, don't do that. We don't do that. That we start to condition the child. Right? So we want to remember, we want to go back to, what are the stories that I have? What are the stories that I've built? And then you want to start asking yourself, do I resonate with that? What do I agree with? What don't I agree with? How do I want to look at things? How is it that I feel about XYZ? How is it, what's my idea about it? Right? And so that is the first place we always want to start, is to really figure out those things and the wounding. Now, to know about, as I mentioned, that we do get to create our reality, that is in our environment. So whatever you want to switch into, right, you have to create repetition of that. Okay. So if it's to start if you're countering negative self-talk, then you have to counter it with positive self-talk. And you have to do that in the moment. You have to be so aware. You have to do that in every way possible, repeatedly, in order for that habit to form. Now, again, the brain is a machine. If you keep telling your brain, no, we're not going to think like that, we're going to think like this, the brain is going to start to create those neural pathways. Here we go with the psychology, right? The neural pathways that we have in our head, in our brains, were developed through repetition early on in our childhood. So those neural pathways, what it is, you got to think about it like, if you think of a brain and you see all the indents, you got to think about it like neural pathways through repetition indentations are created. Right? So to change it, you have to create a different pathway. And with repetition, you indent it into your psyche. That's how you want to think about it. So we're fighting the neural pathways in our mind that have been there. But it doesn't mean that they are permanent and that they are forever. When you are changing the course and you're like, no, brain, we're going to go this way. Eventually, and pretty soon, doesn't take that long, the brain is going to say, oh, we're not going that way anymore. We're going this way. This is my command. My command is to go this way. And it will start to automatically take that path. Okay? But guess what? Repetition is what's necessary in order to create those indents in your mind. Again, like I told you, there's levels to the stuff, right? So that's the mental. Mentally, it's through neural pathways based on our habits, based on repetition, that our reality is created. Our emotions tell us, is the compass, letting us know, I like this, I don't like this. This feels right, this doesn't feel right. And your emotions you want to pay attention to because it is the closest to that part of you. Okay? Now again, doesn't mean emotions are always right because they're built upon wounds as well, right? You could feel sad about something, and the reason you feel sad about something is because of the way you're thinking about it. So here's the tricky part. Follow me. Your emotion is saying this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel aligned. But it's thinking that because of how it interpreted it, right? So if somebody says, oh, hey, and you take that like, oh, you could take that like, oh, that person was cold and distant, right? So then your emotional response is going to be like, I don't trust that person. I don't like that person. Because you interpreted it as they're being nasty. But if you interpret that as like they said, oh, hey, and you say, that, oh, hey, you're like, oh, I guess they were distracted. I guess they're busy. Different way of thinking about it, right? I guess they didn't have a second to see how freaking awesome I was in that brief moment, right? Like, then that interpretation is going to bring about a different emotional response. That emotional response is not going to be hurt or feel negative about the person. It might even feel sympathy for the person because they must be blind to how awesome I am, right? So this is, all related to your mind and how you interpret things. And if you're used to, why am I used to thinking about things like that? I'm used to thinking about things like that because I have programmed my mind to think about things positively. Some buggies, we all get buggies, but that's all right. So, right, I have trained my mind to think positively, especially to think positively about myself in relations to things. This is a training that I gave my mind because I said, remember, at first, my experience was very negative with people. But I started to train my mind to interpret and view experiences as not about me, but about them. Easy one. Doesn't mean that they were positive, perhaps, but I take it as, oh, they must be having a bad day. Nothing to do with me, right? Which is completely different than interpretation. Therefore, I'm going to have a different emotional reaction, okay? The spiritual part that comes in is really who you want to be. See, I want to be somebody that spreads light and love. And so when I have an interaction like somebody saying, oh, yeah, right? And I take that as saying, oh, they must be having a bad day. I'm going to feel okay about it, right? Emotionally. And then what I'm going to do is let me brighten their day. Let me say a joke. Let me give them a compliment. That's the spiritual part of me because I want to add and contribute positively to the world and make others feel empowered. Coming from my own wounds where I didn't feel empowered early on in a lot of my interactions, I wanted to change that, right? And so that's spiritually where I then am aligned in that scenario, is that I'm doing what is natural of my spirit, is to help others feel good. So you follow it, right? Physical environment interaction. Somebody says something, the way you interpret it matters. Your emotional response to it is based on how you interpret it. And the spiritual alignment is how you want to show up. All in all, to say that even a single, simple interaction, you got to be present. The key is to be present, is to be in that moment. If you're distracted and you have all this white noise, you can't achieve this. So you have to first get into your mind, control your mind. And the external helps you do that. The external, your environment, what you're doing helps you do that, right? And so going back to the things that are important to me, I make sure that I live my life delulu in all kinds of ways, right? I make sure that I do that by the way I see things, by the way I interpret them, by the way I respond to them. But again, physically, externally, I change my environment. in the ways that I want it. Now, I'll tell you, I used to go really overboard with this because, and my friends would tell you, overboard how that I would just want to control the environment all the time, and I was being a little bit more selfish, right? It was like whatever I wanted, not what others wanted. And so that's a story for another day. But you don't want to go overboard, right? Because we're sharing everything in this planet, and it's about making an experience be positive for all of us, not just you, right? And again, those are my gifts. Those are my skills, and that's what I want to share, because spiritually, I know that my spirit is one of love, is one of light, and all I want to do is leave that impression onto others, to love, right? To feel good if they're with me. And so what we're going to do right now, as we end this, let's change the environment, and we are going to dance. Dance with me! All right? Can you hear that? Can you hear that? No, I do not own the rights to this music. But here we are. Here we go. Dance with me. Let's go. Mario, pásame la juca. I hope you hear it, because I want you to dance with me. Hasta que se acabe la noche. What are your favorite songs? What are the songs that get you up and dancing? Is it music? Is it soft music? Is it high music? Music is a wonderful way to really express and move emotions. Right? So if I'm sad, I could put a sad song and I could cry. If I want to feel like, okay, first of all, I don't know why, but I was like growing up like emu, like at 16, I was acting like I saw this meme, like we're going through a divorce. I don't know what that's about. But all that music gets me hype. Here we go. Fuego, fuego, fire, fire, fuego, fuego, fire, fire, fuego, fuego. So tell me, you think I'm not going to feel good after this? Think I'm not going to feel good and hype today? I'm going to have extra energy on this Sunday. You know what I'm saying? And all that because I put a little bit of music. All of that because I put a little bit of music. Because I put a little Bad Bunny. Right? And if we know Dominicans, what Dominicans listen to most? Bachata. Why? Because they're always being amargado, right? They're always like living in some like love stuff, right? What I'm saying? But all that expresses, all of that helps you tap into that emotion. So let's go, baby. Just remember, you control it. You get to manage it. You're feeling down and you want to uplift yourself? Put some music. You're feeling sad and you want to let that all out and you want to cry? Put some sad music and cry it out. You know what I'm saying? But you have to be in touch with yourself. Get back home to you. Stop all the white noise, all the mind chatter. Okay? By being present, by tapping in, by asking the questions. We so often run away from asking the questions. Why am I feeling this way? What am I feeling? What's really bothering me? The more you run away from yourself, the harder it's going to be. You're always going to be at the mercy of everything going on around you. You're always going to be at the mercy of lack. Always chasing, always feeling lack, always feeling like you're just sort of floating without any regard, without any control. And when we feel helpless, we feel our worst. So hey, let's go. I love you. This is Therapize Me by Lydia Ignacio from Reaching Heights. Follow for more. Now, like I said, I'm going to try to figure out how I put these lives on YouTube. I don't know if that's possible. But thank you to all that came. Thank you to all that participated. Again, I am willing to open this up, have conversations. If you don't want to go on the screen, you could just type up questions at any point. I love you. And let's get back home to yourself. Let's make sure we recalibrate. right? We recalibrate and we really create the reality that we want to live in. And that doesn't mean material things only, because it's not about material things. It's about what's in here, right? And that you're fully aligned to that. Love you.